James, can you hear me?
Hey, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Okay,
The
I'm trying.
calendar hold is for 10:30, I guess, because you can't do it for
I
10:15.
I know I tried to edit it and it messed up. But I'm gonna put it in I'm gonna put the chat right now. Hang on.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Can you share your screen so we can make sure that the
Yes.
block thing is gone?
Yes. Hang on a second, okay?
Yeah, no worries. Let me know if there's anything I can do.
Hey guys,
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. That was a very good first session.
I thought so too.
Yep. Very, very good.
Ugh. Whew. I'm working with the Zoom. I'm on my phone. I have the feed loop going. And I'm taking notes and taking notes on the agenda.
Mhm.
Hi. Man, if no one uses this background that I worked so hard on at 2 o'clock this morning, my heart is going to be broken.
I download it, but it's not working on my end. I don't know why.
It's okay. It was a PowerPoint. I just made a PowerPoint and dropped the logo. Oh. Hey, Jessica, long time no see. You're muted. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to have you turn your camera and your microphone off. But you'll turn it on at the end because I believe you're one of the panelists.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I need to make
Thank you.
Angela to make Christine co-host, but I
I
can't
can
do
do
it
that.
on my end.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Oh yeah, I can't either. Weird.
Hang on. What's going on?
We need to make Christine co-host.
Okay. Christine Kittle.
Yep.
Are you a co-host already? Yes, you are. Where's
Yes,
Christine?
I am.
There she is.
Oh my.
Okay, she should be good.
Great. Thank you.
So yeah, that whatever you're doing right there, Angela, there's a black square in the middle of your screen.
Is it still there? Can you see it
Yeah.
now?
Nope, nope. It just went away.
Okay. Let me share my screen, my video, and let's see what,
Okay.
hopefully it goes away. Do you guys see it now? I know it's just a
No,
black screen.
we do. It's not there.
But you see my play button, right? The play button down at the bottom, and you see local lens right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're scheduled to start it in 2 minutes, so I'm hoping that it goes away, and if it doesn't, we'll just figure it out after this session.
Yeah.
I think that resolves it because I'm not seeing your toolbar anymore. So you must be sharing the app now. So I think that resolves it.
Well, I fixed some other things, but we'll see. Let's just fingers crossed. But people should be popping in now, guys. I just
Oh
shared the
yeah,
link.
they're popping.
Okay. Good morning. I am so pleased to introduce Keith Milley, who's with the FWC Division of Marine Fisheries Management. Keith has been with the FWC for 19 years, and he's going to be presenting today the statewide Florida Artificial Reef update from his home in Tallahassee, Florida. Take it away, Keith.
Thank you, Angela. This is a high-level statewide overview of Florida's artificial reef activities over the past 5 years. 2020 marks a 38-year successful partnership with coastal governments, nonprofits, and state universities. Together, we've co-hosted 7 regional artificial reef workshops, videos of which are posted on the Florida Sea Grant Artificial Reef webpage. And during this time, we've also made dramatic improvements to our FWC GIS Florida Artificial Reef database, and including improvements to the coordinate accuracy, which are all posted on our website. We've administered over $15 million in FWC and federal grant funding for artificial reef construction, monitoring, and research. I would like to acknowledge and introduce our FWC Artificial Reef Program staff, myself and 3 fisheries biologists, Christine Kittle, Jeff Wrenchen, and Sean Fitzgerald, who've all been instrumental to help us meet the program implementation. We're also engaged at the national level, and there have been a number of accomplishments, including the 2016 National Artificial Reef Workshop that was hosted by NOAA Fisheries, and the 2017 Artificial Reef Symposium that was at the National American Fisheries Society meeting, where 24 oral presentations were given and generated a book edited by Steve Bortone. The Gulf and Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission Artificial Reef Committee published the 3rd edition Guidelines for Marine Artificial Reef Materials in March 2020. Looking at state grant and aid funding over time, we continue to administer state funds from general revenue and saltwater license sales, as well as federal funds from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service sport fish restoration. Since 2016, these funds have been level funded at $600,000. Occasionally, we receive funds from other sources, such as the Maritime Administration for the Vandenberg and Natural Resource Damage Assessment funds for the artificial reef construction off Northwest Florida in 2016. I'm pleased to report that we anticipate another $10 million of NERDA funds for Northwest Florida artificial reef construction starting in June 2021. I hope everyone tuning in today has received a copy of the 5-year summary infographic produced by Jeff Wrenchen. You can download it from the Summit portal. And I encourage all of you to have this handy during the regional updates that will follow this talk. I wanted to take a moment to point out just a few things on this infographic, starting with the average patch reef, which weigh in about 200 tons and result in an average footprint of 2,300 square feet, which coincidentally is the same square footage as the average U.S. single-family residential home. Next, I would like to point out that the most modules were deployed off of Northwest and Southeast Florida, each deploying about 3,000 units during the past 5 years. And we continue our discussion defining the parameters of the deployment, patch reef, and footprint. And I encourage everyone to listen in tomorrow to hear more about footprint estimates from Damie Stewart's presentation. Taking a step back, looking across the state of Florida and the Atlantic and Gulf Coast, there's been a dramatic improvement in recent years in efforts towards mapping the seafloor. This has increased our knowledge of the location and presence of natural hard bottom, and it's important for us to keep that in mind as we plan our artificial reefs. Now, during the summit, you're going to see some other presenters with slides depicting the locations of Florida's over 3,700 artificial reefs. And I wanted to take a moment to point out the scale of these symbols. And sometimes when people see these map points, it's easy to think that we are paving the seafloor with artificial reefs. Of course, when you zoom in on some of these, you'll find that this example off of Flagler County, where this one point represents about 30 small concrete modules in an area, a diameter about 150 feet, and it encompasses a lot of sand bottom as well. So once you adjust these points to really try to take scale into consideration, they really become quite small, especially when compared to the vast expanse of the presence of natural hard bottom. We've also seen shifts over time in artificial reef materials. And most notably, I would like to point out that the use of secondary use concrete has declined dramatically. That's a result of increased availability of concrete recycling and less reduced availability of those secondary use materials. There's also been a dramatic increase in design prefabricated artificial reef modules, especially within the past 5 years. Looking at steel vessels and barges, we've had a reduction in the use of those material types. And during the past 5 years, we've had no Navy or U.S. maritime vessels proposed for artificial reefs. Other trends that we see looking across the state is there's been emphasis on more placement of artificial reefs within state waters. Most of these reasons are for human use purposes, for example, ease of access or construction of snorkel and kayak reefs that are accessible from the shore. Sometimes there is a desire for locations with less stringent regulations, for example, when the state and federal fisheries requirements are not consistent. We also see more of a push towards developing species-specific and more focused ecological considerations for artificial reef design. These include shallow juvenile fish stepping reefs, as well as some deep water reef darts. And I encourage everyone to take a look at the West Palm Beach Fishing Club video on their sponsor page to learn more about that. Other trends that we see, and again, you will be hearing a lot more in the regional updates and other presentations during the summit, includes statues and art forms and memorial reefs. These are becoming exceptionally popular and sometimes causing us to really think very critically about how these are designed to make sure that marine habitat and marine fisheries is really the top priority in these designs to ensure they meet the permit requirements. In 2005, after 2005, we enjoyed 10 years of no storm activity off the state of Florida. However, since 2017, we've experienced 3 major hurricanes. This has tested our materials out there as artificial reefs, and we've learned a lot and continue to make adjustments for artificial reef planning and material selection. We're also using more technologies, including side scan sonar, and that's enabling us to complete higher accuracy pre and post deployment analyses and surveys. We're also getting more information for permit applications and review. And all of this feeds back to our FWC Artificial Reef GIS database, which continues to improve in accuracy. There's a number of FWC funded research projects that we have supported over the past 5 years. And these are helping us to dramatically improve our knowledge of the artificial reef habitat, providing us the best available science and feeding back to, again, to our management objectives. During the summit, you will hear from a number of presenters on these topics during the poster session and during oral presentations. So again, I encourage everyone to tune in and learn more as the summit continues. And with that, I will take questions during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Pleased to introduce Joe Nolan. He's the Coastal Projects Manager for Volusia County, and he's been with Volusia County for 30 years. Take it away, Joe.
Hello, Artificial Reef Summit participants. I'm Joe Nolan with Volusia County, coming to you from my home in New Smyrna Beach to provide an update on artificial reef program activities for the Northeast Florida region. The Northeast Florida region encompasses Nassau, Duval, St. Johns, Flagler, and Volusia counties. Our area of the coast is characterized by a broad, sandy continental shelf, in many cases 40 to 50 miles wide, with scattered sandstone outcrops and ledges that creates marine habitat and live bottom in this area. We have very few natural reefs offshore Northeast Florida, and our artificial reefs become incredible oases, if you will, and habitat, I believe, because of that. The counties of Northeast Florida, for the most part, the counties and cities have active reef permits currently. However, very little reef construction activity has really taken place in the last 5 years, with the exception of Volusia County. All of the counties and cities have plans to build artificial reefs and hopes, subject, of course, to funding and community and elected official support. I'd also like to point out there's an excellent one-page summary overview of the Northeast Florida region and all the regions that the FWC Artificial Reef Program Office has provided for the conference. And I would refer you to this for some great data on each region, number of reefs built and average depth and type and so forth that's available to you. Most of the reef locations in Northeast Florida are anywhere from 1 mile to 40 miles offshore and from 50 to 130 feet deep. We have we have several inshore sites in state waters as well. And the purpose is to create marine habitat where none exists, and to support the marine industries, the charter, fishing and diving and boating industries as well. The stakeholders are fishermen and diving organizations and clubs and conservation organizations that support artificial reef construction with funding, and of course our federal and state agency partners and the overall marine industry. Some highlights for recent artificial reef construction in the Northeast region include some shipwreck deployments that took place in 2018 offshore Volusia County. We sunk a 165-foot steel vessel, the Lady Philomena, that was donated to us by Customs and Border Protection as a seized vessel in the Miami River. And while we were there acquiring the Lady Philomena, we acquired the tug Everglades, a 90-foot tug, and we deployed both of these in close proximity to one another to create a large diving area with a couple of different shipwrecks that you could do 1 or 2 dives on and have a great day offshore. The side scan image in the upper left-hand corner is of the Lady Philomena resting on the seabed in about 85 feet of water. Another highlight that took place recently was in Jacksonville, whereby Joe Kistel of the Kistel Media and Tessiri organizations engaged the U.S. Coast Guard to actually do a reef deployment for them on one of the city of Jacksonville's permitted areas. And Joe has forged this incredible relationship with the U.S. Coast Guard in Jacksonville, and they deployed some of their sinkers. These are they call them sinkers. These are actually the anchors they use for their large steel buoys that they mark port entries with. And they have an incredible vessel that is highly refined with a large crane on board, and it was a great deployment. And that's just been a great relationship and unique to me to engage the Coast Guard this way. Other highlights include renourishment of some old shipwreck sites that have been offshore for, in some cases, 40 years, and those ships may degrade over time or get busted up on the seabed and could use some renourishment with concrete materials immediately adjacent. And this improves the habitat and ecologically reinvigorates, if you will, this older habitat and changes it up, diversifies it ecologically, and creates an improved and larger fishing and diving site. The side scan image on this slide is of a tug sitting upright on the seabed with a large pile of concrete culverts immediately adjacent. Trends for the future include nearshore reefs within state waters to allow for red snapper fishing year-round under state regulations, use of side scan for highly refined mapping, and reef deployment sponsorships with CCA or Yamaha in the case of the 2 ships that we sunk off Volusia, and then social media outreach and improved promotional outreach, such as what Joe Kistel with Kistel Media and other communities are doing with their ad authorities and so forth. I'd like to thank my colleagues in the Northeast Florida region for helping me out from the various counties and cities to gather up this information and provide this update. And lastly, I'd like to thank all of our program sponsors over the years that have supported artificial reefs with direct funding support in some cases, or with the donation of materials for reef construction. And with that, I'll take questions if there's time.
I'd like to introduce Jessica Garland. Jessica is with Martin County. She's been there for 14 years with the Coastal Program, and she's connecting to us from her office in Stuart, Florida. Take it away, Jessica.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. As Keith said, I'm Jessica Garland, Coastal Management Coordinator for Martin County. I'll be giving the 5-year update for the East Central Florida Artificial Reef Program. Over the last 5 years, the East Central region is made up of Brevard County, Indian River, St. Lucie, and Martin County. The managers for those counties are Matt Culver, Molly Kleinpeter, Jim Oppenborn, and myself. Over the last 5 years, the East Central area has deployed over 27 artificial reefs. The average patch reef is at 93 feet in depth and 500 tons. Thanks to Jeff Richen for creating those wonderful facts for us. 5 vessels have been deployed in this area, and 11,000 tons of concrete and 159 units of material. Brevard County has one single 3,000 acre permitted site, which is made up of 4 patch reefs that have been deployed over the past 5 years. The Space Coast Artificial Reef Advisory Board, developed through partnerships with the Florida Sports Fishing Association, the Central Florida Artificial Reef Anglers, and the Coastal Conservation Association, has continued to guide projects through sustained community management and funding. Additionally, the county's beach management has also worked with the United States Army Corps of Engineers to create some nearshore mitigation reefs. The Brevard County area has 2 different inlets ranging from a foot to 46 feet. They also have the Indian River Lagoon and a marine environment that's got 50 to 55 feet offshore. Their primary users are anglers, divers, boaters, and also the Sebastian Inlet State Park. Indian River County's artificial reef program uses secondary use mixed concrete and prefabricated artificial reef modules to deploy. These deep water reefs are used for fishing and diving opportunities, as well as creation of diverse ecosystems. Through recent deployments, the county has added new reefs approximately 5.5 miles south of the Sebastian Inlet and has added 1,700 tons since 2017. Indian River County continues to prepare for new deployments and monitor their existing reefs. Their marine environments are 50 to 55 feet as well, and they've got the Sebastian Inlet in their county, which is a foot to 18 feet, and they also have the Indian River Lagoon, which is a primary thing for all 4 counties. Their stakeholders are anglers, divers, boaters, and the Sebastian Inlet State Park. St. Lucie County continues to provide recreational fishing and diving opportunities through the creation of diverse artificial reefs. The use of the county's Harbor Point Park has been limited and restricted the county to only looking towards vessel deployments and reef modules to enhance their artificial reefs. The program has also started focusing more on inshore habitat, including oyster reefs, seagrasses, and water quality. The restoration of Morris Creek, an urban tributary, will be beneficial of those inshore habitat creations. Their environments is a marine related of 50 feet to 214 feet. They have the Fort Pierce Inlet, which reaches a depth of 20 feet, the Indian River Lagoon, and urban tributaries, which can go from anywhere to 1 to 4 feet. They have the stakeholders, anglers, divers, boaters. They also have the Fort Pierce Inlet State Park and the city of Fort Pierce. In Martin County, our artificial reef program continues the mission that was started by a group of retirees and sport fishing enthusiasts in the 1970s. Our program focuses on the use of materials of opportunity to build our reefs. Using these materials reduce costs of each reef, providing recycling credits to the utilities and solid waste department. This is very beneficial because keeping that material out of the landfill reduces the amount of carbon fibers that are going back into the atmosphere. The county is currently in the process of creating a staging loading area that will be used to reduce hauling costs from our stockpile to our loading area. The county has created 6,500 tons of new reefs using materials of opportunity, as well as deploying a 200-foot long vessel. As I mentioned, our counties each have a part a part of our program that reuses concrete for our artificial reefs. Who would have realized, so many years ago, that we were already working on resilience and preparing for climate change by reducing the impacts and what is staying in our landfills. As you can see, this is a small insight into what our counties have created. Brevard created a large area with reef balls. The Indian River County Strike Zone Reef has become a new home to a Goliath grouper in this module. And the Paul Jacquin Artificial Reef in St. Lucie County used mass boulders that were part of reused concrete. And then in the north, in the top corner, is the Brassy Girl Reef, which was a tugboat that was deployed in 200 feet of water and is a 180-foot long boat. Each of our counties have also done work inshore. We've all created different forms of oyster reefs, living shorelines, to help improve the water quality that is going on within the Indian River Lagoon. Brevard County works in coordination with the Brevard Zoo to create large oyster restoration. St. Lucie County has a new project in Indian Hills that is going on. Martin County is working on a living shoreline project at Indian Riverside Park to protect the historic Tuckahoe Mansion. Indian River County did a mass exotic plant removal and living shoreline project at Round Island. Like I said, the staging area issues do not just affect one of us, they affect all of us. St. Lucie County lost the use of Harbor Point and has now had to limit what they can deploy from there. Martin County and Brevard and Indian all benefited from St. Lucie County having Harbor Point. With that being gone, we now have to find somewhere else to go. So Martin County is working on a right-of-way that belongs to the county and to build a seawall and loading staging area for the temporary staging of the concrete and then loading of the barges. This way there's a shorter haul from our permanent storage facility for our concrete. Brevard and Indian River County have just started working on finding somewhere to go. We've got to get to the future by learning what we did in the past. We aren't a one man or one woman band. We've got to lean on each other. If that means partnering with other agencies or DOT to get the bridge material after they replace a bridge, partnering with county roads or bridge divisions to get their concrete or store the concrete for future deployments, that's a good thing, because the bait fish will recruit rapidly for high profile reefs. Or also learning that volunteers are helpful, but they're not so suitable for trained professionals. Also, one thing learned is divers are less interested in smaller reefs as they are opposed to larger reefs. Thank you for listening, and this is the first Artificial Reef Summit without our dear friend, Carrie.
I'm very happy to introduce Jenna McNeil. Jenna McNeil is with Palm Beach County, and she's been with them for about 5 years and is connecting this morning from her office in West Palm. Welcome, Jenna. Take it away.
Hi, so I'm going to do the Southeast Regional update. And the Southeast region is comprised, like you said, of Palm Beach County. I'm the coordinator. Broward County, where Pat Quinn and Angel Rivera are the coordinators. Miami-Dade County, where Sarah Tana is a coordinator, and then Monroe County. While Monroe doesn't have a very active artificial reef program, Celia Hitchens is the contact for all things environmental down in Monroe County. So here in Palm Beach, we have 20 offshore permitted sites and 6 inshore sites. And for this, I wanted to go back and kind of look at what we have learned over the past 5 years. And we have this amazing relationship with the Andrew Red Harris Foundation. And their whole goal is to create artificial reef habitat while increasing the knowledge behind artificial reef modules. So in 2016, they deployed over 230 modules of 3 different variations. You can see here in the bottom picture. The pyramids, which we've all seen in different formats throughout the state, and then these 8-foot coral head modules is kind of what they're termed. The creator there is standing in the middle, and he's created swim throughs for fish and other small cavities for fish to swim into. And then our cinder block modules, which are pretty simple to put together. So we put down over 230 of these in 2016. And here's our barge loaded up with all of those on there. Went down beautifully, everything looked great. Then Irma came, and so we decided, let's go back and see how these held up structurally after Hurricane Irma. The cinder block modules held up really well. They're the heaviest, they're 4 tons in total. They didn't move, they didn't break. The coral head modules, we had 5 to 10 that moved 25 feet or so to the east. And then if they did break, it seemed that the tops just kind of slid over and fell over to the side. So we're having some base connectivity issues. And our pyramids, unfortunately, they pancaked. We had about 50 that we deployed, and I would say at least half looked like this after the hurricane. So for us in Palm Beach County, and this was northern Palm Beach County, where we do get a lot of wave action, we looked that pyramids just don't really work for us structurally. The other 2 seem to handle the waves a little bit better. So we decided to look at the habitat that each of these provide, since we had already looked at kind of the engineering side. And we found that the pyramids get great growth, but because they're hollow in the middle, we get our 1 or 2 resident Goliaths that take over, and that's kind of all that's home there. And when I was going through pictures, I saw why our pyramids were pancaking. It seems that they seem to spald on the edges here, and the rebar seems to get exposed, and then that kind of structurally, the integrity goes down from there. And then habitat-wise for our cinder block modules, great growth. Each little hole has a invertebrate growing in it, so it's just full of inverts of every kind you could think of, but not great for fish habitat directly, because there's just not a lot of big spaces for them to swim through because of the design. So our winner was this guy, and you can see in this little video, we got lots of juvenile fish, reef fish, and there's lots of spaces for the fish to swim into. And some of these have hollow cavities in the middle, so they can go in and go out the other side. And there's still a lot of great interstitial spaces for inverts to grow and a lot of that epifauna to grow on. So these were kind of our winner at this little venture to look at these 3 different types in northern Jupiter at this point. But like I said, the Andrew Harris Foundation, who donated this material, is a real big innovator. And so while they saw some structural integrity issues with these, they wanted to move forward and see what else they could come up with. So they came up with these prefabricated boulders. And basically you dig a hole in the ground, pour concrete, put in some spacers, pull them out, power wash them off, and you have a prefabricated boulder that has a bunch of space in it for fish and whatnot to come and grow. We put over 300 of these offshore of Juneau last year. So we're just kind of waiting for them to mature and see how they grow over time. Then I wanted to briefly mention the Reef Dart project with the West Palm Beach Fishing Club. They have come up with this idea to create high relief artificial reefs in very deep water, 400 to 500 foot plus for snapper and grouper fish. So their first go around was in 2016, and we did 12 of these reef darts, all precast, poured, and we put them in 110 feet of water, pushed them off the barge to see how they'd perform. They all landed base down and their pole up in the air, except we had 3 that broke at the collar. So we went back to the drawing board. This time they were able to get some reuse and recycle electrical and light poles and some reuse culverts to increase that collar height to decrease the breakage point at the collar. We put 24 of these in 110 feet of water. They all performed perfectly. So last year we went out and we put, I think 28 in 500 feet of water, and all the fishermen report that they're working as designed. And so we hope to put more in the water in 2 more weeks. Down to Broward County, they have 5 offshore sites, and some of the highlights from them for the past 5 years was their partnership with Shipwreck Park. And the Shipwreck Park has helped them fund 2 ships and sink them in 2016, 2017. The first one was a Lady Luck 320-foot tanker. Isle Casino was a big sponsor of this, and the really awesome thing for these 2 vessels was the artwork they got put on them. At the same time they were cleaning this vessel and prepping it, I was cleaning one for Palm Beach County, and I was so jealous of their artwork. Here are the pictures. You can see they have all the octopus, the dice, the slot machines. Then they had card sharks, which I thought the play on words was amazing, and this beautiful mermaid. And so the artwork was just awesome. And one of the lessons learned from this project was that you have to really work with the artists, because a lot of the artists that want to do this kind of work aren't divers and don't understand the harsh marine environment that their work's going to go into, and then how hard divers can be on this artwork over time, because every diver wants its picture with all of these creatures, which means putting some pressure on the artwork. So you can see how the mermaid's matured, getting some nice growth on her. She lost her wine glass, but to be expected, getting a little Spalding in her shoulder. And then this is a recent picture I found online. Poor girl lost her arms, but that's because that's probably the easiest point for divers to hang on to while they take pictures. So one of the things Angel wanted to highlight was just make sure you have good receivers on your ship so you can switch out artwork as it needs to be switched out just due to wear and tear, and really have good communication with the artist when you're going through it, the process. This is their second vessel, the Okinawa. It's a 107-foot army tug they put down in 2017. You can see this really cool bar called the Midnight Sun that Finlandia Vodka sponsored, and this is their beautiful mermaid with this really cool ball to take pictures in. I know the ball's been replaced a few times, so again, it's just thinking about longevity of these sculptures. Osborne Tire Reef removal continues and is being successful. It's another one of their projects. Down to Miami-Dade County, they have 3 inshore sites, 9 offshore sites. One of their big focuses for the future are focusing on partnership projects with other user groups. And this bug light was removed and decommissioned, and the fishermen really wanted something to replace it. So they worked with them to create a bait reef out of reused concrete. One of the other things that they are focusing on in the future are nearshore resilient reefs that have multiple uses in them. So looking at a reef that can help with sea level rise, a type of breakwater to save beaches and beach erosion, while creating a snorkel site for visitors. So they see that as one of their goals in the next 5 years for some of their nearshore reef creations. Something I wanted to highlight, they have what's called Neptune Reef, which is a memorial reef down off of Key Biscayne. This is a picture of phase 1 that was done several years ago. They just recently did phase 2. As you can see in this schematic, the bottom part was just recently deployed. And when I went through their pictures, I just thought the construction pictures were really impressive to create these prefabricated pieces, put them down, and then do some really intense underwater construction. It's nothing that I've ever taken on, but I think it's a really cool concept that could expand the different types of artificial reefs that can be created. And then here's a picture of their phase 2 complete underwater. And with that, I'll take questions.
I'm very happy to introduce Katie Laakkonen. She's with the City of Naples. She's been with the city for 15 years and got involved with artificial reef development in the city in 2015. Katie is joining us from our office in Naples. Welcome, Katie, and take it away.
Thanks, Keith. Hi, everyone. Katie Laakkonen with the City of Naples in Collier County, and I will be giving the Southwest Florida regional update. This encompasses 7 counties from Hillsborough and Pinellas all the way down south through Collier County. You can see the contact information on the screen for each county. Starting with Hillsborough and working south, they have surveyed epifaunal communities on 3 artificial reefs in Tampa Bay in spring and fall 2016 in order to evaluate the current condition of these reefs and compare results with a previous survey conducted in 2004. Results showed seasonal changes in species composition, with oysters dominating the community in the spring, while barnacles were dominant in the fall. The abundance and biomass of the invasive Asian green mussel, which was dominant in 2004, was found to be nearly absent in 2016, which is great news. Monitoring of artificial reefs using the roving diver method in Tampa Bay is ongoing, documenting fish community structure and condition of reef materials. Enhancing engagement with the public is also ongoing. There have been updates to the website and artificial reef program brochures in both English and Spanish, along with electronic versions. Their YouTube channel has 37 videos uploaded with more than 55,000 views. No timelines have been established for future projects, as COVID-19 and the subsequent remote working of staff has delayed applying to reopen permits, as well as side scan activities. I'm sure we can all relate to those types of delays. The primary purpose of reopening the permits is to be able to take advantage of materials of opportunity if offered, including several bridges that are being replaced in Tampa Bay. Moving on to Pinellas County, you can see here their active permit areas. They had a deployment of Veterans Reef in 2016. It was added onto with the Circle of Heroes project, which is spearheaded by a nonprofit group named Brighter Future Florida. This group is planning to deploy a total of 24 life-size statues over the next year, and so far they have 12 currently deployed. Pinellas County is interested in shifting their focus from deeper sites to shallower inshore sites to better allow accessibility to the public. Future projects involve deploying 1,500 tons of second-use concrete, as well as completing that Circle of Heroes project. Moving on to Manatee County, they currently have 2 permitted sites ready for future deployment. The county's major objectives in constructing artificial reefs are to create an underwater environment that balances public user group interests, such as fishing and diving, with resource conservation while minimizing environmental impacts. Their artificial reef program does not have an annual budget and relies solely on grants and donations. They had a deployment in 2016. They added 22 reef modules to these 3 locations. The Borden Reef area had multiple deployments as well within the last 5 years. And this area is meant to mimic and augment the naturally occurring but relatively rare hard bottom limestone ledge habitat that exists in nearshore waters. You can see some of the species they've documented thus far on the Borden Reef, and one of my favorite pictures is that triggerfish picture. They've also documented using side scan that no movement of the reefs occurred after one of the strongest storms passed over Manatee County, so that's great news. Diving observations also showed no noticeable scouring or movement. For future projects, the Bridge Reef site can accept materials of opportunity, such as from major infrastructure replacement projects. However, no funding is available for this at this time. The county has also initiated an annual reef cleanup protocol for newly created artificial reefs, as well as made numerous updates to their website, which I wish I had time to go over with you. Moving on to Sarasota County, they have conducted quarterly Eternal Reef deployments, and they have completed 34 deployments thus far. This deployment was funded by the Wallen family to honor Tom Wallen, a former FWC Commission member and seafood restaurant owner. And then there's the Eternal Patrol Memorial Reef, memorializing 65 American submarines lost since 1900. So touching on Charlotte County, they have added 2 permit locations, and you can see here the deployment at the Palm Island Ferry Reef site. And that's a Kemp Ridley's turtle that they are showing here. Fisheries monitoring is ongoing, and they are currently working on a shallow water military reef site dedicated to the 5 divisions of the military that can be used for snorkeling, diving, and fishing. For Lee County, they have a wide array of artificial reef sites that can be seen here in an excerpt from their Artificial Reef Guidebook, with deployments being pretty diverse in the types of reef materials that they use. Recent activities in Lee County include the placement of 5 new artificial reefs using high-quality surplus and secondary use concrete as well as reef balls in coordination with FWC, the Coastal Conservation Association of Florida, the City of Cape Coral, and Eternal Reefs. Lee County's created relationships within the community for the donation of quality reef materials, but does have a challenge with the lack of waterfront staging for materials, which we can certainly relate to as well. They also maintain a mooring buoy at their signature diving site, the USS Mohawk, which provides a great amenity to the diving community, but does require significant maintenance. Future plans include permitting 1 new site next year for the placement of a large bridge that is planned for demolition, which would be a great new destination for nearshore anglers. And lastly, deployments off Collier County coast have been numerous, with 6 active permit sites, 2 with Collier County, 2 with the City of Naples, and 2 with the City of Marco Island. In these 6 permit areas, 40 deployments were made using BV grant funds and private donations. We've had some interesting recruits within a few months of them being deployed, including corals and one of my favorites, giant anemones. The impacts from red tide were apparent and very patchy, and it's quite eerie to be diving on a reef and not see one single fish. Some good news, though, is that fish did start to return within a few days, but data on short and long-term effects of these blooms and subsequent dissolved oxygen crashes is lacking. The City of Naples also conducted oyster restoration in Naples Bay, creating 23 new reefs, in addition to 3 chevron-shaped structures using reef balls that act as habitat and also provide wave abatement. Here's the contractor deploying a fossilized shell rock mix into the reef footprints. A few months after deployment, we already saw many recruits, so this monitoring is ongoing for this project. Here's a drone shot of the finished product. You can see some visiting manatees if you look hard enough in that photo. Future projects include finishing the oyster restoration at 2 of our 3 permit areas. So Site 3 will be complete in December, and Site 2 is pending grant funding. To wrap up here with challenges and lessons learned, several counties have relayed the challenges of limited staging for their reef projects. And I'm sure we can all relate to COVID-related delays along the way. A lot of projects are reliant on grant funding. Some have expressed delays in obtaining federal permits. Some would like to utilize new technologies but find it cost prohibitive. Several counties have experienced the expansion of these mini reefs, which hang under docks. So outreach to the public has been ongoing regarding these, as counties do not want to promote the addition of plastic into our waterways. Maintenance, of course, is an ongoing reef cleanup, lionfish removal, those sorts of activities. And monitoring, I know that we certainly would like, Collier County would like to do more monitoring, but lack of time, staff, and money prohibits that. And finally, some lessons learned. Build in some contingency funds for additional material needed due to settling. This is primarily relating to the oyster reef construction. Materials matter. Thousands of tires were deployed in late 80s and 90s, so Pinellas County still finds these washing up on shore. Red tide impacts were observed. What are the long-term impacts that we see from this? And several counties have increased demand for more nearshore reefs that are easier to access by the public. And with that, I'll be happy to take questions in the Q&A session.
Thank you, Katie. Next, I would like to introduce Keith Kalasa. He's been with the state for 26 years, initially with the Water Management District in the region. And for the past 5 years or so, he's been with Hernando County. And he's connecting with us this morning from his office in Brooksville, Florida. Welcome, Keith.
Thanks, Keith. Keith M. Thanks again. I really appreciate the opportunity for you guys allowing me to present on behalf of all the other counties in the Big Bend region. It's an honor to do that. I wanted to thank the other authors, co-authors on this slide for contributing on the abstract and getting me their information. So I wanted to start off really, I know we have a short amount of time, but I wanted to start off with just an overview of a map showing the most recent reef deployments in the last 5 years. Pictures here, trying to hit the highlights of each of these deployments. We have the expansion of Steinahachie Fisheries Management Area. Again, the modules, the Lindbergh cubes that are placed in small patches to help increase quality habitat. Instead of a large reef, they focus on doing more smaller patch reefs spread out over a bigger area. And I would definitely encourage you to go out and look at the papers that were done by UF and Sea Grant on the success of that program. And Taylor County and the program lead there, Victor Blanco, they also did some metal material deployments at Buckeye Reef using some scrap mill material from, I think it's Georgia Pacific. So that was also another expansion there. So overall, they had about 366 units or Lindbergh cubes that were expanded. Another really key thing I wanted to highlight there is the volunteer program that's been headed up by Victor Blanco with Sea Grant. And he's really done an outstanding, extraordinary job putting together a monitoring program with volunteers. I think that would be a really good model for other counties to follow in our region. And I encourage you to reach out to Victor Blanco if you have questions or you want more information on that program. Hernando County is a little bit different story than Taylor County. We've had about a 20-year gap or downtime, I guess you could call it, in our reef deployment program. Our last deployment was way back in '97, and then our most recent one was 20 years later in 2017, where we started expanding the Ben-Dixon Reef site. And that was, we added 600 tons of material in 3 different patch reefs there at that site. What's surprising to me, I mean, you can read about a lot in the literature, but when you see a reef develop in your own eyes, you know, by diving and doing monitoring, and you see the change in the rapid increase in fish productivity and fish that are inhabiting the site, it's really impressive to see it firsthand. I think that's one of the things that take-home message is, or things I've learned from the reefs artificial reef program, is how quickly these sites are inhabited by fish and increased fish production. Another project that was done at the Dixon Reef expansion was the addition of a concrete sailboat. And this project is really, I wanted to highlight this one because it was a great example of how the whole community came together to lots of different contributors here to help deploy this abandoned boat or derelict vessel that was left at a marina for years. And the whole community came together to get this thing deployed at Ben-Dixon without much cost. I mean, I think the total cost spent on this project was around $5,000, and that everything else was done by volunteers who cleaned the vessel, and there was about 800 man hours involved to clean the boat, prep it for deployment. And, you know, there's just a few people listed here, or groups, or Hernando County Port Authority. They poured a lot of their time into this project to make it happen, as well as other companies that donated their time. And for this project, it was kind of a different design or approach. We were concerned the boat would move as when it was deployed. So what we did with this was we put reef balls in both inside the hull and around the boat to help make sure the boat did not move and secure in place. And CCA Florida donated those materials. Just a couple pictures here of the completed deployment of the boat. And we had some really good clarity that day. And then again, this site was quickly inhabited by gag grouper. They really liked the deep cover of the hull and of this boat, and they moved in really quickly. And another project that was completed here in Hernando the last few years was the addition of 3 shallow water reefs using pallet-sized reef balls. These are all near shore reefs that are about 10 feet of water. And this was also completed in 2017. The whole target or purpose of this project was increased habitat for gag grouper. And we've seen a good success story on juvenile gag grouper populations utilizing the reef balls in this site. So it's the first shallow water project we've done, but we're hoping to do more of these in the future since residents here, people visiting scalping, they also use these sites to snorkel while they're doing their scalping. Just a few more pictures there. Again, these, you know, one of the things that you learn when you do artificial reefs is how quickly they populate with fish and other marine life. Also, we've had a good partnership with Scuba Nauts International. They're a youth organization that's one of the few organizations that has teens that are ages from 12 to 18 that are operate underneath the AAUS program. So it's a good group of scientific divers, and they've been coming out to do monitoring on both the Ben-Dixon Reef and the shallow water reefs. So they really have enjoyed this project, and we've enjoyed having them do the monitoring on the project. In addition to on the fish counts, one of the things the scuba nauts did was they did drawings and maps of the ghost ship. And here's an example of one of the drawings that one of the teenagers did on their dive. So we actually use this in a fundraiser project. And lastly, I wanted to just hit on what we're doing in the future. We do have quite a bit of money allocated from Restore to expand our artificial reef program in Hernando County. I've also listed some of the other funds that other counties have allocated for artificial reefs. These are just a few of the sites that are planned. We're using Restore money in both our neighboring counties and Hernando County. And another thing I did want to mention is, even though there's some of the other counties are not doing artificial reefs with Restore funds, they are doing other sort of marine enhancement projects, like living shorelines and oyster reefs. Levy County has quite a bit of money they've received awarded from the Gulf Consortium for oyster reef development. So that's another exciting component of the Restore funds. And I want to wrap up with just saying thank you to allow me to present, but also I wanted to thank some of the contractors that have worked on these projects, like Colleen Marine and D&L Contracting, and also Reef Innovations. You know, they're a key component to getting these projects done. As we all know, it takes a team effort, and the contractors are a huge part of the project success. With that, I mean, I'd like to see if anyone has any questions. And again, I'm just very happy to be here to present.
I'd like to introduce Melinda Gates. Melinda Gates is with Walton County. She's been the artificial reef manager for over 7 years now. She's reporting to us from her office in Defuniak Springs, and she's going to be reporting on the most artificial reef activity across Florida over the past 5 years. Take it away, Melinda.
My name's Melinda Gates. Yes, I am the Melinda Gates, not that Melinda Gates. My bank account shows. I am the environmental coordinator for Walton County, and I get the privilege to wear many hats here in Walton County. But one of my favorites happens to be the artificial reef coordinator. So I've been given the honor this year to represent the Northwest Florida area and the artificial reef community. Northwest Florida is known for our white sandy beaches and emerald green waters. However, over the past few years, we've become well known for our artificial reefs as well. Although there are a few natural reefs up in this region, most of the area is bare ocean floor. So artificial reefs are very critical to this area's marine fisheries and tourism-based economy, which is why 7 out of the 8 counties have extremely active artificial reef programs. Over the past 5 years, Northwest Florida has spent over $11 million in state, federal, and local and private funding to construct 429 patch reefs along approximately 200 miles of coastline, where 399 of those patch reefs were found in state waters. The types of materials deployed varied between vessels and barges to concrete rubble and prefabricated modules. However, 94% of those patch reefs did consist of prefabricated modules. Going from west to east, I'll be updating you on a few projects in each of the counties in the Northwest Florida area. Starting in Escambia County, throughout the past 5 years, Escambia County has constructed tons of artificial reefs. If you have a conversation with anybody in Escambia County and they start to talk like pirates and their favorite letter is R, it's only because they've been on the water that long. Utilizing natural resource damage assessment funds, private donated funds, Florida Fish and Wildlife funds, Escambia County has constructed over 200 reefs. These new reefs included prefabricated modules such as tetrahedron modules and Goliath reef balls, as well as a steel tugboat called the Ocean Wind and concrete rubble. The 3 Mile Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. Okay, totally ignore my tone deafness here, but the concrete rubble project that Escambia County has worked on was in partnership with the Florida Department of Transportation. They were able to repurpose the old 3 Mile Bridge into one of the largest artificial reef construction projects yet. To date, they have deployed almost 75,000 tons of bridge material. Most recently, Escambia County also deployed a snorkel reef off of Pensacola Beach. That particular deployment was finished less than 3 months before Hurricane Sally hit in September of 2020. And we're still waiting on some of the post-hurricane data to see how the ecosystem modules did in that historic 6-foot storm surge for almost 24 hours. Santa Rosa County, with $1.2 million funded by the Natural Resource Damage Assessments, partnering with their local artificial reef groups, has constructed an artificial reef approximately 1.1 nautical miles south of Navarre Beach. Their goal was to improve fishing and diving recreation in this area. They deployed 510 prefabricated tetrahedron-shaped reef modules and 27 reef sites. This site encompassed approximately 500 acres of total area and makes an amazing trolling reef. Okaloosa County, well, frankly, they just need a vacation after all that they've accomplished in the last 5 years. They have deployed multiple private reefs, public reefs, some in partnership with Eglin Air Force Base. They've collaborated with Strike Lines to create 3D multi-beam maps. They've worked with the Florida Department of State to expand the Panhandle Shipwreck Trail, including 5 additional sites offshore of Okaloosa County. They've assisted the Reef Smart Guides creating 3D modules of artificial reef sites throughout the entire Northwest Florida region, and has created numerous videos about artificial reefs that can be found on YouTube. Okaloosa County is even trying to start a new fad in the area, not with clothes or with hairstyles, but with fish aggregating devices. Utilizing resources associated with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, Okaloosa County has deployed 4 fads and approximately 1,500 to 2,400 feet of water. And they also have plans to do 4 more here in the near future. In Walton County, see behind me, we believe very strongly that there is no I in team. We would not be where we are today without the amazing partnerships that have come together through the love of marine resources. Walton County closely works with the South Walton Artificial Reef Association to achieve all their deployments. Over the past 5 years, through the funding of NERDA, Restore, Fish and Wildlife Commission, and local funds, Walton County has deployed over 700 prefabricated modules and 9 nearshore reefs, 3 fish haven sites, and 4 snorkel reefs. The culture in Walton County is very art-centric. Therefore, our artificial reef projects also have an artistic flair to them. For instance, we have installed 4 snorkel reefs in specific patterns. You can see them through Google Earth, and all of them look like either a dolphin, a seahorse, a sea turtle, and a fish. In 2018, the Cultural Arts Alliance of Walton County, in partnership with the South Walton Artificial Reef Association, and in support of the Visit South Walton, the National Endowment of the Arts, the the Alice Foundation, and Visit Florida, joined 2 of South Walton's most beloved attractions. That was the arts in the Gulf of Mexico, with the introduction of the Underwater Museum of Art, which was North America's first underwater permanent permanent sculpture exhibit. The museum is located off of Grayton Beach near shore and is approximately 3/4 of a mile offshore of Grayton Beach. These sculptures are made out of concrete and steel materials and are in various shapes and designs, including skulls, reindeer, octopus, a cactus, and even a diamond ring. Currently, there are 17 sculptures that can be found in this area, with 8 more planned to be deployed in early of 2021. Bay County partners with the Mexico Beach Artificial Reef Association, Bay County Artificial Reef Association, Florida Aquatic Marine, and UF Extension Sea Grant Florida programs have been extremely instrumental in their amazing success. Bay County and Mexico Beach have 6 large deployments over the past 5 years, including a retired Navy vessel, a hopper barge, manufactured concrete, piling supported ecosystems, and a vessel called the El Dorado, which was a former gambling vessel that ran aground on seagrass during the Hurricane Michael. In 2018, the artificial reef work in Mexico Beach and Bay County had a pop quiz for resiliency, specifically against Category 5 Hurricane Michael. It was noted after the storm that many of those older reefs that had been scoured and buried prior to Michael were now uncovered, which was amazing. The piling mounted systems fared well without any damage, movement, or scouring. The deeper water prefabricated modules seem to have very little impact by the storm. However, what we did notice is that those located in shallower waters, around 20 feet of water, experienced the greatest impacts. Specifically, it was noted that some of these pyramids had fallen over or even moved approximately 1/4 of a mile from the original location. Gulf County, and then of course I didn't want to leave Gulf County off the map. Gulf County does not currently have an active artificial reef program. However, they have partnered in the past with Mexico Beach Artificial Reef Association with their mission, with their missions of special fundraising and helping out with advertisement. Franklin County has been working with the Organization for Artificial Reefs for numerous of years, deploying artificial reefs off the eastern side of the county. In 2016, they permitted a new site called the St. Teresa, and over the past 5 years, this partnership has deployed a barge, a memorial reef, and 4 new patch reefs. In 2019, they inherited another artificial reef program called the Apalachicola Artificial Reef Association, and they formed on the more western side of the county off of St. George Island. Together, the county and Apalachicola Artificial Reef Association permitted an area called the Buddy Ward site, and they're proposing their first deployments in 2021. Wakulla County and the city of St. Marks has partnered with the Organization of Artificial Reefs for over 35 years to achieve their artificial reef goals. Over the past 5 years, they've renewed 2 permanent sites, and through FWC and local funds, they've created 27 new patch reefs, which included reef balls, Lindbergh cubes, and concrete pier slabs and culvert material. Northwest Florida has gotten a lot accomplished over the past 5 years, as you can see. This success can be contributed to 3 major themes. One is the partnerships we have here in this region. They include anything from marine advisory committees to artificial reef associations to other local partners and government agencies. Number 2 is just being innovative, trying out new products, such as like the piling supported structures that we've installed in some of our snorkel reefs, making artwork out of artificial reef material, the concrete and steel. And third, utilizing local opportunities, such as deploying bridge material, working with the military to deploy used concrete, and even deploying vessels damaged by hurricanes. So I invite you to come visit us up here in the Northwest Florida region and experience our artificial reef culture. At this time, I'll be happy to entertain any questions with the assistance of my Northwest Florida colleagues.
Great presentations to all. We're going to ask the speakers to turn on their cameras and unmute themselves so they can answer some Q&As from our chats. Since we do have a fair amount of you, if you maybe want to, maybe we can raise our hand, or you can do, there's like a reaction button and you can clap if you want to respond to a question, just so we don't have as many people talking over another. So we'll wait until we get everybody to turn on their video, and we can start the QA. So if anyone has any questions that they would like to type into the chat for me or Victor to ask our panel, please go ahead and do that. I did record some that were already being put into the chat as the discussions were, as the presentations were going. Great. So I think a trend that I saw was there's a lot of partnerships that the counties have among each other, as well as a lot of nonprofits. Do you guys want to give any recommendations on how to create new partnerships, or what goes into those partnerships, and how do you keep those partnerships active and have good relationships with those entities? Joe, why don't you answer my question?
Okay. Well, we have a partnership with a couple of concrete manufacturers that's real important to us, of course, because they provide us culverts and structures and that sort of thing. That has been we're providing them an opportunity to clear their yards and get rid of some product and keep the material out of the landfill, or not pay to have it crushed for road base or that sort of thing. So it's a mutually beneficial deal, really. And this year, one example was we picked up some of the trucking costs to get the material to our reef staging yard on the Intercoastal. So that preserved that partnership because I paid them, which was pretty straight. That's pretty straightforward. But it is important. I mentioned some work that Joe Kissel had done up in Jacksonville with the U.S. Coast Guard. That was a unique partnership, engaging the Coast Guard to have them do a good thing, if you will, with some discarded product that they needed to discard. So that's another way to look at it. I think helping each other out is the bottom line.
Does anyone want to expand on anything? Do you have a lot of people coming to the county, reaching out to the county, or do you feel like you guys are kind of in search for materials or connections or funds to develop these partnerships?
I could answer that one.
Sorry, Jenna. Martin County has a agreement with our transfer station to waive all the fees for anybody that brings clean recycled concrete to the transfer station landfill. So they don't have to pay to dump it, and the transfer station then stores the material for us for the artificial reef program. So that's one beneficial way that we have to stockpile material for our program.
I was just going to comment on Christine's kind of question in regard to, do we make the partnerships, they come to us, or vice versa? And I would say at the beginning of 5 years ago, the county was trying to make those partnerships. And I think because of some successes we have had with Andrew Harris Foundation, the West Palm Beach Fishing Club, CCA, whatnot, now it's kind of flipped where we're having lots of people want to come and start agreements and partnerships with us, which is great. We just need to find some more money so that we can help everybody.
Jenna, I think there's also a question specifically for what happened to the pyramids from Hurricane Irma that maybe you can expand upon. So Victoria's asking, the pyramids that were pancaked by Hurricane Irma, can you explain more about the rebar corners that were exposed? How did they become exposed, and how old were they before the hurricane hit?
I mean, I don't know exactly how the rebar became exposed. I think it was just spalding underwater, because they were not exposed before we put them down. Prior to deployment, they looked like they were in totally normal and good strength and whatnot. I don't know how old they were prior to deployment, because they were donated to us. So I don't have, since we weren't involved in the creation of them, I don't have the details on when they were made versus when they actually hit the water.
How long were they in the water before the hurricane came through?
So Scott Harris will help me be able to answer this better than I can, but I think it was a year. I don't remember what year Irma hit versus if it was the before.
Okay, we have a few more questions coming in. Victor, do you want to?
Yeah.
Ask one of them?
I see in the chat box, this has been very active in the discussion, and some questions coming in and actually some answers as well. But we want to share with everyone during this discussion. And one of these, let me check here. There are some specific questions. And for example, one for Gina, how are the cinder blocks attached to one another, the ones that remain intact after the hurricane?
Yeah, it's a special marine epoxy, and I think Scott Harris chimed in on the chat box of the exact brand, and he said that also, let's see here, say the right kind, but he said it's Fasco 7 epoxy patch, which is sold by certain fiberglass companies. You have to reach out to them and make sure before you go to the store to make sure they have it, because not everywhere sells it. And then he was saying that regular concrete mortar works well too. We've had Eagle Scouts do a lot of these cinder block modules as part of their projects. And if they didn't use the epoxy, because it is expensive, and if the Scouts can't get it donated or raise the money for it, they would use the mortar. And if they're stingy on their mortar use, we've had issues during loading that if they get jostled or hit or, hit something along the loading process, the blocks will fall off if they don't have enough mortar on them. So after we've had some issues with that happening, I only let the Scouts sign on to doing the project if they use the epoxy. So that's just kind of what I've learned over.
That sounds like a lesson learned to share with all the other managers of artificial reef. And another question to you is, have there been any follow-up on the number of divers using the ARC reef, or have you received any feedback on any safety issue of the use of this reef?
No, we don't have exact numbers. We have over 160 artificial reefs. And so some locations are used more heavily by divers than others, because some are brought there by our charter boats. So some get, hit on a regular basis. The ones I highlighted in our presentation with the modules, when I did the comparisons of them all, I don't know how many divers use those. We haven't done any sort of like monitoring on numbers. But none of our artificial reefs are in any sort of a state that is a danger to divers. When the
pyramids pancaked and you saw that exposed rebar, it's all very, very low relief. It was only, you know, at max maybe 6 inches sticking up. So it doesn't, there's no entanglement issues because they're in a wide open space.
So we have more, yeah, so we have more of a general question for everybody. Over the past 5 or 10 years, have you seen more or less support for artificial reef monitoring? And what are your counties doing now that they haven't done in the past to kind of help develop their programs? Melinda, why don't you respond?
Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect. So in Walton County, of course, we've definitely seen a huge increase in just the popularity associated with artificial reefs. And I honestly constitute that to having an artificial reef association in our area that is very active. They get the community involved. And when you get the community involved, they get passionate about it as well. And so that's where I think we've seen a lot of good efforts that have been going around, especially with just like the underwater museum. That was something that would never come to fruition without the partners that we have.
Katie, did you want to say something? Your little box lit up.
Oh, in terms of the monitoring specifically that you were asking about, I know that we certainly don't have a volunteer base in terms of scuba divers going out to monitor the 40 plus deployments we did offshore. And so to me, that's kind of a big gap in not having that type of data. And between the county and the city, we don't have the staff to go out and monitor them on a regular basis either. So that is something I would definitely like to see more of. In terms of our inshore reefs, our oyster reefs are definitely monitored on a more regular basis just because of the ease of access to get there. They're in the estuary, not offshore. And it's also a grant requirement that we monitor. So, you know, these requirements may have to be roped into permits more in terms of allowing that funding to be there to do the follow-up post deployments. But we have 3 years that we're required to do for our oyster monitoring. So that's kind of more of our focus than the offshore reefs.
Yeah, and there's another question related exactly to that. What would be your perception of what the user's perception is on the need of inshore reef versus offshore reefs? Have you get any like need assessment of what people said they will really need more development of inshore or offshore reefs?
I know for Collier County, we haven't put out surveys or anything official like that, but I know that Chris Yarko, the Collier County Artificial Reef Coordinator, has gotten feedback from the community that more nearshore reefs within a couple miles of shore are desired by the charter fishermen and anglers, like for going to get bait in the morning, for example. So I think if Collier County does any more offshore reefs, they're going to be focusing them within that 10-mile line from our major passes.
Yeah, Katie, you mentioned that there's this new permit requirement for monitoring and cleanup. How have your counties been able to handle that? One of the questions is, how frequently do your counties monitor the existing reefs, and how do you focus on the cleanup? Do you guys do annual cleanups? Are the, I guess, the debris measured as far as quantity? Those were a few questions that came through in the chat box.
I
believe the monitoring protocol that was in my presentation was Manatee County, if I'm not mistaken, that they're upping their focus and effort and developing a new protocol for reef cleanup. So maybe I believe it's Kristen could expand upon that. Again, reef cleanups is something that we would definitely like to do more of. The city of Naples doesn't have a means to get offshore. We don't have an offshore worthy boat. We have one that we use for water quality monitoring inshore, for example. So that's something where we rely on the county that does have an offshore vessel that they can utilize, that if we want to do targeted reef cleanups, we can. They're so overwhelmed that, again, the resources aren't there to do these frequent reef cleanups that we know need to be done. But really, unless we have a volunteer movement to really get a systematic cleanup done every year, that's another thing that really needs to be developed more for our county.
Yeah, and it seems like monitoring is a very important topic, you know, transversal to all the presentations, and there are more questions. I wonder if Keith Colasa, I see him connected only by the phone. Keith, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Sure. There is a question related to that about the monitoring and what, how do you manage that partnership with Aquanauts related to the monitoring, and if there are any outcomes on the fish assemblage monitoring that they were doing?
Yeah, we started early on working with Scuba Nauts International, and they have a program under AAUS, and it's been really a good program for us because they are a volunteer group and they have their own insurances and training set up. So it's an ideal partnership. It really started just early on with basically one of my son was involved in the program, and so it's carried forward into Hernando County, and we've been very fortunate. And yeah, they do fish counts as well as just general assessments of the reef balls and some mapping of the Ben-Dixon Reef. So I would encourage you to reach out to them, and they're privately funded and they're always looking for donations, but that's a key. If you can find someone like that to help with your monitoring, it's a win-win for everyone, and the students learn and we get data from them as well. But I would agree the monitoring is a need, and it's a challenge to find consistent monitoring for programs that aren't required to do monitoring.
Yeah, and we will have a session only to talk about monitoring further in our summit. So, Christine.
Yeah, I think the nonprofits and the partnerships that the counties have made have really been leaders in doing more frequent monitoring. Just wanted to let everyone know that FWC, we do have annual grants that fund construction and monitoring. So the counties can apply for those funds if you are not aware of that. So we're at about 2 minutes left. So I have one last question that I've seen through the chat, and it's particularly, I'm trying to find it. For the counties that had long lags in their artificial reef deployments, what suggestions or recommendations do you have that might assist other counties to get their programs going again? So Joe, maybe you can feed in on that since there are a few lags in your northern region, and then potentially anyone else who has any opinions on you needed, if you guys, saw a lack of funding or what, however.
Well, if you got to convince the elected officials that hold the purse strings to support the program, right, and provide a dedicated funding source. Maybe if you can leverage some grant funds from the state program, of course, that makes it an easier pill for local elected officials to swallow. And then if you can spread it out to CCA or some of these other organizations that support reefing and get a 3 or 4-way partnership going, then that makes all the difference. Really, you got to get some local champions, whether they're with the fishing clubs or diving organizations or that sort of thing, that will that make this that talk about this at their meetings and spread the word on the Coconut Telegraph that artificial reefs are something they want and they need, and they want to expand fishing and diving opportunities offshore their coast. And then to connect with the elected officials. If they're folks that are connected in some way and can make some phone calls and go to meetings and share that support, the elected officials will, of course, direct their managers to endorse this program and make something happen, and then set aside some funding. So and it starts with the public sector, of course, because we hold the permits, right? As you know, that's a big issue there. So if you can get some of that public money going locally, I mean, it'll really ramp up. We're lucky; we have a dedicated funding source and have for many, many years, and it's well known. It's well supported program, and everybody gets it, right? They understand it. They see it in the paper. They see it on Facebook, and they understand what we're doing and why. And we have a strong boating and fishing community that. And a strong marine industry here in Central Florida that's beyond the scope of Volusia County. It's regional, right? It's Central Florida, including Orlando and other large metropolitan areas. So we're lucky, but you just got to push. You got to make some noise, I guess, and get some folks to come along with you.
Christine, I saw that comment that Joe just responded to came from someone in Monroe County, and so I was just thinking through. You guys down there are known for your natural reefs, and that's what people come to dive on. So if you're looking to do artificial reefs, think of what's something that you don't have maybe that would make an artificial reef unique and make somebody want to go down there to not only dive on your natural reefs, but your artificial reefs. So, I don't know, something like the artwork at Underwater Museum that the Panhandle had done. And like Joe said, getting your local people boisterous about it. And you guys have Divers Direct. They're a huge company that's bought into coral reef restoration, especially through the whole Florida Reef Tract. And their president is pretty involved in those kind of activities. And so just, start knocking on doors and, like Joe said, get an exciting idea that people want to get behind, and then the money, might start to come in that way.
Sinking a large ship goes a long way because ships are sexy, right? Everybody digs that, and they see a large shipwreck. That's a neat thing, right? That's an unusual thing. And so ships are great, right? Because of that, because they're very popular. You got to hang on to them for a while and clean them up, and everybody can see it. And everybody gets it. Concrete culverts are not so fancy or sexy. So people, but they're a good product. They're great artificial reef material. But ship sinking, people really get behind. It seems like, as you all well know. I think Jen has sunk one recently, and some other folks in St. Lucie. A lot of people show up and get behind it, and the fishing clubs love it.
Well, unfortunately, I need to say that our time is up. There's more questions coming in the chat box, and I will recommend please try to use the FitLoop platform to contact directly our speakers. And thank you all for attending the first day of the summit. We will have a 15-minute break, and then the authors for your posters will be available for questions and further discussion in each of their own video meetings. All the posters are located in the showcase, where you can view the poster abstracts, download the poster as a PDF, and leave your message in the public chat or send on a private chat. A link to the author's personal meeting room will be posted in the public chat on the right hand of the side of the website. We will see you all back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time in the virtual platform for the day 2 session. Please don't forget to find the current sessions, click the new Zoom link, and join us again in real time. The direct link back to the virtual event, I'm going to post it on the chat box, and we really appreciate it. It was a great discussion. Anything else to say, Christine?
No, just thank you speakers, and great Q&A session. Like Victor said, if there's any other questions, feel free to email them and they can respond to you or direct you to that specific county's coordinator. All right, everyone have a good afternoon and look forward to seeing everyone in the poster session.
Yep.
Thanks, Christine. Take care, y'all.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.